وسهلا بكل الذين ينضموا للاستماع إلى راديو بلدي، أول راديو عربي أمريكي ويعنى بقضايا العرب في المهجر. برامجنا في راديو بلدي كل يوم جمعة من 8 وحتى 9 صباحا مع ليلى الحسيني في بث حي ومباشر وعبر WNZK راديو 690 AM. صباح الخير بلدي، صباح الخير لكل مستمعينا.
Welcome to Radio Baladi, the first Arab, Middle Eastern, and American simulcast radio show. Radio Baladi is broadcast every Friday morning on WNZK 690 AM from 8 until 9 Eastern Time on Good Morning Michigan with Layla Al-Husseini. Our call-in number 248-557-3300. And now, stay tuned for the best radio talk show on Arab and American issues with your host, Layla Al-Husseini.
I am Atef Abdel Gawad. Join me the first Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. I will be discussing some of the most important issues and events in the Middle East live on America's Voice of the Arabs. WNZK 690 AM and WDMV 700 AM.
Good morning. Jared Kushner was asked 3 times on CNN about the Palestinian state. He had no answer. Kushner is President Trump's son-in-law and senior advisor in charge of Middle East peace. Speaking from Bahrain, where a Peace for Prosperity workshop just ended, Kushner said there is a great deal of enthusiasm among participants for his economic plan to help improve living conditions for the Palestinians on the West Bank and Gaza. But the Palestinians are boycotting the effort, rejecting the money unless there is agreement to give them their own independent state. Their rejection may be used by Mr. Trump to justify his support for Israel to annex West Bank settlements, thwarting Palestinian demands for an independent state. So what should we expect from the Peace for Prosperity approach? And can Mr. Trump achieve peace by turning the Palestinians into Kurds, people without state? How that might affect Israel as a democratic and Jewish state? Will prosperity lead to peace or to perpetual war? To answer those questions and others, we have a group of distinguished experts. We have Dr. Hani Bawardi, professor at the University of Michigan. We have Mr. Michael Friedson, executive editor of the Media Line News. And we have Dr. Khalil Jahshan, executive editor, executive director of the Arab Center in Washington, D.C. Before we start the conversation, I would like to invite our audience to call us with questions or comments. The number to call is 248-557-3300. That's 248-557-3300. Now let's start, and I want to ask all 3 experts the same question to start with, and that is, what do you think about the idea of the Bahrain workshop in general? Let's start with Dr. Bawardi.
Mr. Jason Greenblatt, U.S.'s envoy in the Middle East, describes this plan as from peace to prosperity. And he is like someone on a road from nowhere to nowhere because there is no peace to start with. So how can he have prosperity? So there is no way for this plan to achieve the goals it sets for itself. These things exist only in the imagination of a few businessmen around the current administration. I don't see how this plan can even lessen the hardship of the Palestinians living under occupation. It doesn't even talk about the occupation. So the plan promises a lot of things. For example, cutting unemployment down to 10%, lessening poverty levels, Even the insult goes as far as promising to establish one of the best universities, one of the 150 best universities in the world, as if Birdate and Al-Najah universities don't exist, and as if the Palestinians did not value education all of their lives. If it weren't for the education, if it weren't for the occupation, they would be easily among the top. Literacy rates would be among the top in the world anyway. And also adding insult to injury. I mean, these promises come after the United States cut off all aid to UNRWA. So this is an economic plan that seeks complete surrender. And the question for Arab thinkers and Palestinian communities around the world is to step back and reevaluate, frankly, what's happening here. In fact, Israel's ambassador to the United Nations wondered out loud, what's wrong with Palestinian surrender? So if we are part of the narrative, historical narrative of the area, now if we were worried about hummus and falafel becoming Israeli, now there are global companies actually promoting, as far as food goes, 3K and Maftool and all those Palestinian folklore or cultural outputs as Israeli and have been at it for a while. So this plan actually makes the Palestinians disappear as a people and turns them into human resource for Israeli companies. And the promises of improving tourism in Lebanon and Jordan and Egypt by improving airports and harbors asks for complete normalization with Israel. So the area becomes a hub for the Israelis to prosper, and the Arabs basically as a support system. In fact, the plan also calls for providing electricity more often for the Palestinians and drinkable water. And one has to wonder, why don't they have those to begin with? So when you take the word occupation out of the equation completely, as this plan does, so what's left? What exactly are we talking about? We were told in the past, the Palestinians were told, if you join Oslo, Palestine will turn into Singapore. And that didn't happen. And now
Mr. Bawardi, we're going to discuss all that. I just wanted initially to get your idea, your opinion about the idea of the Bahrain conference. We're going to discuss all those issues in a minute. Let me turn to Mr. Michael Friedson and the same question. What do you think about the idea of the Bahrain workshop?
Well, thank you, first of all, for having me. It's really nice to be with you. I'm a journalist, and I'm covering the Middle East from the perspective of watching everybody and all thoughts and all activities. When the Bahrain conference was announced, we had some very distinct concerns about. There's another word in the lexicon of recent called optics, and the optics are such that to create a conference that excluded the Palestinians was sort of like making a wedding and not inviting the bride. The other part of the equation that was troubling is what you've already touched on, the fact that who is coming, what is coming, but what is not coming is the other part of the plan. Even to say occupation is not part of it to date is not the same as being in the position where the optics are such, the appearance, what people feel, what permeates the entire exercise. Having something that's not revealed in this era of transparency is a very bad calling card and a very bad way to start off. Our agency was in Bahrain during the conference, and these issues were not only lying beneath the surface, they were above the surface. The concern also that the previous speaker brought up was a very serious one, in the feeling that the gap between the haves and have-nots, which is so exaggerated in Israel and other Western countries, that there was no apparent mechanism for the balance of the economic benefits. You know, knowing that you're going to be told that each individual industry was going to do well is not the same as individuals up and down the pay scale doing well. So there were, when you have so many question marks and so many things were not defined to the satisfaction of people that were skeptical to begin with, and that was exacerbated by the Palestinians not being given a seat at the table, it just didn't make sense that they could have too much success if they weren't going to show the political side. Maybe the political side will end up having some surprises that are good and beneficial for everybody. It's possible. But the main achievement so far of the Kushner mission has been that they actually managed in Washington, D.C. to keep a secret for all these months. And it has been a plan that's been pretty well locked up, and if they want people to get behind it, they have to tell people what they're getting behind, and that's what we see.
Mr. Friedson, I just wanted to comment by saying that the Palestinians were invited, were given a seat at the table, but they chose not to take it. Let me turn to Mr. Khalil Jahshan. The same question, Mr. Jahshan. What do you think about the Bahrain workshop?
Thank you, Atef. It's good to be with you again, and it's a pleasure being on this program with both Hani and Michael. Let me be very blunt in answering your question. The Bahrain workshop, as it was called and dubbed as Peace for Prosperity, which was held in Manama, Bahrain, on the 25th and 26th of June, was essentially much ado about nothing. I think it was a form of political scam. It was, as Michael just referred to a couple minutes ago, as a wedding party, except it's not just without a bride, but without a bride or a groom. So it's kind of ridiculous, frankly, in terms of a political effort to ignore the party that is most directly affected in this, that's the Palestinians. I would say that the Bahrain workshop was stillborn. It had no chance at all to move forward for at least 3 or 4 different reasons. One, its focus on the economics rather than focusing on the political problem. The Palestine issue is a political problem and has been for more than 100 years. It begs for a political solution, not economics. This has been tried many times before. Just the fact that the architects of this current plan are ignorant of history and they just want to be different from the previous attempts doesn't make it true. The problem is political and it needs political attention. Second, there is no clear objective. Most peace processes before, and by the way, just for the benefit of your listeners, this is the 79th attempt at peacemaking over the past 100 years, going back to the King Crane Commission that President Wilson commissioned up till today. So this is not new. We have a whole huge cemetery of peace proposals in the Middle East. And this one clearly does not have a clear objective, which is the end of Israeli occupation. I just can't see how savvy businessmen like Mr. Kushner, and I'm being sarcastic here because he ain't savvy as a businessman, clearly, focus on the economics, yet he doesn't mention anything about Israeli occupation. How can you improve the economy of the people that are subject to military occupation by a foreign country? Third, the Palestinians were not consulted. Yes, they were invited, as you alluded to earlier, but they, in the absence of a relationship with Washington these days, they couldn't participate in essentially an attempt to liquidate the Palestine cause. And fourth and last, I would say that the projects themselves, if you are to study that 100-page document that they produce, these are old rehashed ideas. Some of us have been at this game for a long, long time. We have read USAID reports before. We have dealt with World Bank plans before. We have dealt with American plans, including the most recent one, the Kerry plan. All these, it's almost like a regurgitation of the same old suggestions that were proposed in the past, and they did not go anywhere. The main thing is that these projects are unachievable, although they look good with numbers and graphs and what have you, but as long as there is an Israeli occupation, there is no economic prosperity. Therefore, dubbing this conference Peace for Prosperity, when it brings neither peace nor prosperity, is asinine.
When we come back after the break, I'm going to ask Dr. Bawardi. Mr. Kushner compares his plan to the Marshall Plan in Europe after World War II. How does it compare when we come back after the break?
If halal is important to your family, you can trust that Miramar will offer not only the highest quality halal products, but the best tasting and healthiest foods that can be placed on your family table with confidence. Miramar is the first and oldest halal certified food brand in America, serving the Arab and Muslim community, and offers a wide range of halal food products. Check out Miramar's halal food selection today by visiting Miramar's executive distributor, Ziyad Brothers Importing, at www.ziyad.com.
Life is a nonprofit charity that's provided humanitarian aid and development to people and communities for over 25 years, regardless of race, color, religion, or cultural background. When disaster occurs here or around the world, Life for Relief and Development rushes in to provide food, medical aid, and shelter to those in need. Please help improve these efforts. Make your tax-deductible donation to Life now at lifeusa.org or call 248-424-7493.
تعرفوا شيء، احنا كتير بنهتم بالمقبلات بالاكل الشامي،
واحنا بنهتم بالبهارات والتسبيكة في الأكل المصري،
واحنا نهتم هواية باللحوم وجودتها بالأكل العراقي، واحنا في مطعم عشتار نهتم بيكم، اعتمدوا علينا أيا كان. نحن في عشتار نعرف أن لكل مذاق أسرار، فنحن نقدم أجود أنواع اللحوم من ملحمة عشتار الواقعة على 56865 راين رود.
عشتار، قصة حضارة ترويها لكم أطباقنا المميزة في كل زيارة.
تفضلوا بزيارتنا في 3625 East 15 Mile Road, Sterling Heights.
مطعم عشتار بإدارة فادي بهنام وعلي البغدادي. 586-698-2585 586-698-2585.
Are you going to start a restaurant or grocery store soon? Do you need floor plans and designs? Call Naji Abood at 734-744-9796. Do you want to buy kitchen and restaurant equipment at discount prices? Call Naji Abood now, 734-744-9796. New Concept Products and Design, the trademark of kitchen equipment. 5% discount on all purchases of $75,000 or more. New Concept Products and Design, new location, 31185 Schoolcraft in Livonia. Learn more at www.newconceptproducts.com. Call Naji Abood, 734-744-9796.
I am Atef Abdel Gawad. Join me the first Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. I will be discussing some of the most important issues and events in the Middle East, live on America's Voice of the Arabs. WNZK 690 AM and WDMV 700 AM.
Welcome back to our discussion on Radio Baladi. We are talking about Mr. Kushner and his plan for peace in the Middle East. We have with us three distinguished guests, Mr. Michael Friedson, Dr. Khalil Jahshan and Dr. Hani Bawardi. And my question now goes to Dr. Bawardi. Mr. Kushner compares his plan in Bahrain to the Marshall Plan for reconstruction in Europe after World War II. But the question is, the Marshall Plan started or was initiated after the Nazis left Europe, were defeated, after the occupation ended in Europe. And here, in this case, the Israeli occupation, the Kushner plan would start while the Israelis are still occupying the West Bank. So how does it compare?
Well, the political situation and the global situation are completely different. After World War II, Europe was in shambles, and ideologically and philosophically, they were on the same side of the fence from the United States, rather. So the U.S., the Marshall Plan was a self-serving, massive economic rescue plan for Europe to turn it into a market for U.S. products. What happened is that, first of all, it differs in that it did not ask or seek capitulation by those countries. They were allies already to begin with. They did not have to surrender anything. And what happened is that their governments, including socialist parties and in cases communist parties within those systems in Western Europe, were left intact. And Europe regained its economic capacity, in fact, to surpass the United States in some fields. And the relationship commenced on equal footing almost. So Europe became an economic superpower. Even individual countries within Europe became economic powerhouses in many respects. So it worked, and there was a reason for it to work, and it became the foundation for this equilibrium between East and West. In fact, that plan excluded the Soviet Union completely. So to contrast to the current plan, this plan actually throws money without dealing with problems. It does not leave the Palestinians to run their affairs. They will not have national borders or a state. In fact, talk of a state is vanishing little by little, and this plan came to sort of take that out of the equation completely, because ignoring the political solution leaves intact Israeli plans to build an Area C, which is in the heart of Ramallah, the largest Palestinian city in the West Bank currently, or in the vicinity of Nablus or elsewhere. So there is no comparison, to be honest with you, and there is no an industrial foundation to begin with for the Palestinians, who were nearly destroyed by the Israelis on several occasions, in 1948, 1967, 2002, and it goes on and on. And every time there are promises, play with us, roll with the punches, and you'll be better off. And things got worse and worse, whereas in Europe, of course, those economies were built, and the countries regained their independence and sovereignty and became functioning and powerful, whereas the Palestinians have almost nothing to look forward to with this plan. Nothing.
We have on the line Mr. Jerry Habba. He has a question. Go ahead, Mr. Habba.
Thank you, Mr. Atef Abdel Gawad, for taking my call, sir, and good morning to you, and good morning to your distinguished guest. Dr. Atef Abdel Gawad, I have two questions. My question, please, the first one, do you think, gentlemen, if the Bahrain Manama workshop was held in a different location like Moscow, but not Washington, D.C., do you think the Palestinians will attend this meeting and probably we will have some results? Number two, if, as of today, do you think 2 decades ago, if the late Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat, if he declared the Palestinian independent state, do you think that could be the only solution at that time? On what would be the reaction? Do you think would be fail or will be successful? I would love to hear this answer, and thank you very much.
Okay, Dr. Jahshan, would you like to take the first question? Would it help if the location somewhere else, not Bahrain, Moscow, Mr. Habba suggests?
I don't think so. The issue of the venue or the location of the conference being chosen in Manama, Bahrain, had nothing to do with the Palestinian rejection. As a matter of fact, the Palestinian rejection to participate came long before the announcement of the location. Palestinian rejection is not irrational. It's a very rational rejection based on the fact, as I alluded to earlier, the fact that there is no political relationship right now between Washington and Ramallah. The fact that this administration has essentially, for all practical purposes, declared war on the Palestinians with a series of steps in going back to December 2017 with regards to the issue of Jerusalem, toying with the permanent status issues, taking Jerusalem off the table, recognizing Jerusalem unilaterally as the capital of Israel, and then proceeding forward with closing the office of the PLO here in Washington, cutting all aid to the Palestinians, moving the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv in May of 2018 to Jerusalem. All these steps, cutting funding for UNRWA in order to eliminate the refugee problem in Palestine, which is essential. So the differences between the Palestinians and this administration are serious substantive issues. They pertain to the agenda of the conference, and you could have held that conference in Timbuktu, and still the Palestinians would not have been able to participate in what essentially is, from their perspective, is national suicide.
Mr. Friedson, the second question from Mr. Habba was, would it make a difference had the late Palestinian leader Arafat declared independence to begin with?
Well, can I first weigh in on the first question? As a journalist, I just always have to get my 2 cents worth in when you mention something of interest. I think there would have been a slight difference. I totally agree with what the gentleman just said regarding before the event. The damage had been done. The respect had been cast. The rejection of the Americans as interlocutors had been well established. So going into it, there would have been no difference. The difference would have come on the other end because of the respect they would be showing for their host. Certainly, if President Putin hosted such an event, there would have been a predetermined a gift, if you will, for all the participants. Whatever they decided to do or would decide to do would be in context of not walking away empty-handed and coming out of it with the stigma of having another failed effort. So I think there would have been somewhat of a difference, but this was the American show, and it was, in fact, Kushner's show, so that's where it was. In terms of the Arafat declaration, he basically declared Palestinian statehood long before his demise, and just the declaration alone, as we can see from day-to-day coverage of the area, is not enough to have turned the trick in getting the infrastructure necessary to build a proper statehood upon it. There's too much dependence, as you've pointed out so eloquently. When you're so dependent upon borders, you're so dependent upon fuel. There are absolute limitations. You can use the word statehood all you want, but in order for it to be in effect a statehood on the ground, you need the autonomy, you need the wherewithal, you need the financial backing. It's possible, and I stress possible, that it could become a more optimistic if Kushner would release the political thing. My feeling from speaking to so many people in the Middle East is that if he's hurting his own cause, because by not releasing, with all the cynicism, all the skepticism about the program, the natural, what people believe he should have done would be, wait a second, you don't like that there's no political thing here, well, let me just give you a peek in what's going to be released. He didn't do that. Why not? Does he have one? Does he have one that would be acceptable? Does he have one that he knows would fail? It goes back to what I said before about optics. You have to create an environment, you have to create an atmosphere, you have to build confidence, you have to have the parties believe that they can actually benefit from this, that it's going to address the concerns that are most important to them. Perception is indeed reality. You can't have a situation where you're taking a crisis that is so deep and so long-running and so passionate and just say, I'm going to show you a little bit of this, but you're going to have to trust me on your day-to-day life and all of those other issues. I really haven't located anyone in the Middle East on any side of the conflict that feels the conference was handled in a way that really could have had significant results. The most optimistic opinion that you come across are those who say, and it's almost comical, say because the Trump administration is so untied to precedent, to history, to all of that which has gone down before him, it's just possible they may stumble backwards into something that the parties might accept and might improve their lot. But nobody's betting on that.
When we come back after the break, we will be discussing the position taken by Arab countries when we come back.
The Rama Relief Foundation provides humanitarian aid into areas inside of war-torn Syria, as well as aid to the refugees who have fled to the neighboring countries in the Middle East. The foundation offers food baskets, container shipment, mental health, education, soup kitchens, and more. Go to ramarelief.org or call 248-990-4247. Any donation amount made to Rama will go to sustaining many lives. Call now 248-990-4247.
أيام زمان كان طعم الأكل غير. كان جدي يجيب لي لأكلة المحاشي والكبة المشوية. بتعرفي اشتقنا لأيام زمان والطعم الطيب.
بس اليوم مع زيادة منتج بديل دهن الخروف الحقيقي بطعم اللية بيعطيكي نفس الطعم الغني والمميز، مجفف، معقم، سهل الاستعمال وحلال 100%. يمكن استعماله في جميع الأكلات الشرقية. ما عليكي إلا أنه تفتحي الظرف وتضيفي من طعم اللية واستمتعي باللقمة الشهية.
وصحتين وهنا.
When it comes to reproductive medicine, IVF Michigan Fertility Centers are the recognized leaders. With locations in Bloomfield Hills and 5 other cities in Michigan and Ohio, IVF has experts in all aspects of the field. As a founding member of IVF Michigan Fertility Centers, Dr. Nicholas Shama is one of the leading reproductive endocrinologists in Michigan and Ohio. Dr. Shama has performed over 10,000 IVF cases and has helped thousands of couples fulfill their dreams of parenthood. American board certified in both obstetrics and gynecology and reproductive endocrinology and infertility, Dr. Nicholas Shama is a very caring, compassionate, expert physician that understands not only the medical but also the emotional toil of infertility on his patients. When it's time, get personalized care from Dr. Nicholas Shama at IVF Michigan Fertility Centers in Michigan and Ohio. Call toll-free 855-952-9600, 855-952-9600.
I am Atef Abdel Gawad. Join me the first Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. I will be discussing some of the most important issues and events in the Middle East live on America's Voice of the Arabs. WNZK 690 AM and WDMV 700 AM.
Welcome back to our discussion on Radio Baladi of the Kushner Plan for peace in the Middle East. And my question now goes to Dr. Bawardi. How do you assess the position taken by Arab countries when it comes to the Kushner plan?
I believe that the two monarchies in the region, Morocco and Jordan, in addition to the Sisi regime, participated. Oman and Kuwait both came out against this deal of the century. And our problem here is that there is a disconnect, an ever-present disconnect between the governments and their own people, because we don't have any legitimate democracies in the Middle East, as we all know. And the ones who started were actually stifled pretty soon. So there's a pragmatism that kind of set in terms of Saudi Arabia's disposition from Iran, and they decided that keeping the United States on their side is the best course of action because they perceive an existential threat from Iran. So they're doing that for their own purposes, and that almost demanded, as happened in the past, to kind of temper their rhetoric or expectations or actions regarding the Palestinian cause in general. So the broad lines of their foreign policy never included Palestine as a priority, for an age at least. As for Egypt, well, I think the same logic applies. Sisi is concerned with his survival. Jordan has always been caught between a rock and a hard place, and we participated undoubtedly under intense pressure by the Americans, and to see if what might come out of this thing. Hardly anyone in the area really expects this deal of the century to take hold or yield results. So it becomes a matter of semantics and, political niceties to occupy a seat at the table to please this American administration. And the Americans wield a lot of power, economically at least, in the region and beyond. So when some countries feel, impelled to participate so as not to say no and seem like rejectionists. As for the Arab populations across the region, I think the answer is obvious that they are not buying it. And there were protests in many places, including in Jordan, by the way. So this disconnect makes us have demand two conversations about this issue: how people react versus how their governments react.
Dr. Khalil Jahshan, the same question. Are the Arabs doing enough to help establish peace based on a two-state solution?
I doubt that. Frankly, I think to understand this question, you have to look at it historically, that there has been a long-term, gradual resignation of Arab countries from the Arab-Israeli conflict, essentially, or from support to the Palestinians, essentially because these countries are facing a lot of serious difficulties and challenges internally and regionally, and they are distancing themselves from kind of a full-time, if you will, or a moral role in the attempt to solve the Palestine question. I would like to just re-emphasize what Dr. Hani just said with regards to the Arab disconnect. We have done, the last survey we have done at the Arab Center through our program called Arab Index. We did a public opinion survey that included about 23,000 people in 12 Arab countries. And we did probe this question, and we found that across the board, about 80% of the population in the Arab world support essentially peace before as a condition to normalization, not the way their regimes or their governments are doing, proceeding with normalization, which is the objective of the U.S. right now, the objective of the Kushner plan, Arab normalization before peace is achieved and postponing the political aspect of the conflict till later. The other comment I'd like to make is about your question before is very important. The issue of the Marshall Plan, or equating this with the Marshall Plan. I would like to commend to your listeners to go on our website, arabcenterdc.org, and look for a paper we just published yesterday by Ibrahim Shikaki, an economist, that details this is the most detailed paper thus far, I think, issued in response to the economic aspect of the Kushner Plan, dissecting where the $50 billion promised for this plan goes. Very few people notice that only 27 out of the 50 billion actually will be spent on the 167 projects out of the 199 projects that the plan advocates in Palestine. And out of that 27.8 billion, only 14.6 billion are actually 11.4 billion are in grants. 14.6 are in loans, which are basically going to create an unbearable debt that the small Palestinian economy cannot withstand in the future. So for those who are looking for detail about whether this is a Marshall Plan or a joke, they need to look at the paper by Ibrahim Shikaki on our website, arabcenterdc.org.
Mr. Friedson, unless you want to comment on any of Dr. Bawardi's or Dr. Jahshan's statements, my question is, unless you have another comment, is the Palestinians and others call for the U.S. to abdicate its position as an honest broker, because the U.S. is biased. But is it realistic? Can we find another party to mediate, given the fact that the quartet has failed, has vanished? The UN is non-existent. The European Union is not taking any part. So is it realistic to talk about an alternative broker?
Well, first of all, honest broker are two concepts melded together. And one can be a broker without being recognized as an honest broker. And in order to move mountains and to pull off something that has been tried 79 times, thank you for the statistic, I'm going to use it, I appreciate that. In order to pull off something that requires trust, confidence, honesty, trustworthiness, you have to earn the title of honest to put on top of broker. Right now, it seems very difficult, if even possible, for the United States to recoup in the first category of the honest broker. The series of gifts, if you could use that word, that the Trump administration has bestowed upon the Israelis in the last couple of years, right or wrong isn't the issue. The issue is how it was received. Perception is reality. The Palestinians are stung by it, they're hurt by it, they're let down by it. So to call the United States an honest broker, they would have to earn that title, and right now that's a long way off. But in terms of being the broker, speaking to European heads and most of the Europeans who are very anxious to take over the American role if possible, most of them, the French in particular, will concede that anything that's going to happen of true significance is going to require the Americans to be part of it. So rather than solve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in one conference, this conference has gone a long way to changing the dynamics such that the peace has to be made between the interlocutor, the broker of the parties, and the parties themselves before they can move on to the second step. We've been covering, quite a bit, and I said we had our organization is called the Media Line. We're an American news agency covering the Middle East. It's in themedialine.org. Our super Mideast bureau chief, Mohammed Al-Qasim Khalil, the CEO of the company, were both Bahrain for the conference, and really everything that we've all said today, I'm not trying to speak for my co-panelists, but everything that has been said is definitely how it goes. If there's one bit of optimism, it's the fact that the Trump administration doesn't really care that there have been 79 tries before them. By dismissing them, it's possible that they might stumble on something that nobody tried in 79 attempts. Now, I realize that's fanciful and that's wishful thinking, but the point is the president has bestowed a great challenge upon his own son-in-law. He's basically said to his son-in-law, take this mission, and if you succeed, you'll become a world figure, and if not, well, I can't speak for the future. So everybody else aside, just within the Trump family, they have a lot at stake. Given the fact that Kushner is no dummy by all descriptions of the people he's done business with, it would seem that by having it in two parts, the economic and then political, he has a chance to, like a boxer getting hit early in the round and falling against the ropes and then getting up and correcting what he's doing wrong so he can win the round. If Kushner lives up to his business reputation, then he should be looking at the Bahrain conference and saying, okay, everything everybody warned me about is true, and my bravado, how am I going to get this done? And if that pushes him towards being more realistic and listening to some of the comments and forums like this one and others, it is possible, I'm not predicting it, but I'm saying it is possible that we could still see a better outcome.
After the break, I'm going to be Donald Trump, and I'm going to ask my guests advice after the break.
Life is a nonprofit charity that's provided humanitarian aid and development to people and communities for over 25 years, regardless of race, color, religion, or cultural background. When disaster occurs here or around the world, Life for Relief and Development rushes in to provide food, medical aid, and shelter to those in need. Please help improve these efforts. Make your tax-deductible donation to Life now at lifeusa.org or call 248-424-7493.
تعرفوا شيء، احنا كتير بنهتم بالمقبلات بالاكل الشامي،
واحنا بنهتم بالبهارات والتسبيكة في الاكل المصري،
واحنا نهتم هواية باللحوم وجودتها بالاكل العراقي، واحنا في مطعم عشتار نهتم بيكم. اعتمدوا علينا ايا كان. نحن في عشتار نعرف ان لكل مذاق اسرار، فنحن نقدم اجود انواع اللحوم من ملحمة عشتار الواقعة على 56865 راين رود.
عشتار، قصة حضارة ترويها لكم أطباقنا المميزة في كل زيارة.
تفضلوا بزيارتنا في 3625 East 15 Mile Road, Sterling Heights.
مطعم عشتار بإدارة فادي بهنام وعلي البغدادي. 586-698-2585 586-698-2585.
The Rama Relief Foundation provides humanitarian aid into areas inside of war-torn Syria, as well as aid to the refugees who have fled to the neighboring countries in the Middle East. The foundation offers food baskets, container shipment, mental health, education, soup kitchens, and more. Go to ramarelief.org or call 248-990-4247. Any donation amount made to Rama will go to sustaining many lives. Call now 248-990-4247.
I am Atef Abdel Gawad. Join me the first Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. I will be discussing some of the most important issues and events in the Middle East live on America's Voice of the Arabs. WNZK 690 AM and WDMV 700 AM.
Welcome back to our discussion on Radio Baladi. We have three distinguished experts, Mr. Michael Friedson, Dr. Khalil Jahshan, and Dr. Hani Bawardi. All three of them now are ready to give Donald Trump a piece of advice on how best he can resolve the problem and establish peace between the Palestinians and the Israelis. So give us your ideas. Let me start with Dr. Jahshan.
The last person I would like to give advice to is Mr. Trump. But at any rate, just out of courtesy for you and your listeners, I will go ahead and respond by saying the following. By the way, just on Monday of this week, the most recent public opinion survey was conducted by Khalil E in the West Bank. And that survey showed, in response to the Bahrain, because that was a key part in the public opinion survey, it showed that 90%, an overwhelming majority of Palestinians indicated in their responses that they do not trust the U.S. administration. I would start with this advice to Mr. Trump. I think if he really wants to recoup, if you will, this damage done by the Bahrain workshop, first, I would remove it from the hands of Mr. Kushner, restore, if he wants to call it a peace process, restore that project to the State Department, form a team of experienced diplomats, and we have plenty of them who've done this over the past 30 years. There is no reason to ignore them and pass this challenge to amateurish people like the Greenblatts and Kushners and Friedmans of this world, and to take a personal role in it. Peace in the Middle East was never seriously taken unless there was an American role at the highest levels by the president. Look back to Reagan, look back to Carter, look back to every president that participated, Clinton, name it. There has to be a role for the president. And I would say if the president is willing to gamble and talk to leaders in North Korea and in Moscow and other places, I think he should gamble and talk directly to the Palestinian people, not even to their leaders. He needs to talk directly to those 90% that do not trust him, to convince them that he is really serious. What is he offering them at all? Right now, they think he's offering nothing. The survey made that very clear on Monday. So if he has a totally different idea and these people are wrong, let's see how this great negotiator, the greatest negotiator in the universe, can negotiate directly with the Palestinian people.
Dr. Bawardi.
I'm not sure how much use it would be to give advice to Mr. Trump, but here we go. My colleague used an analogy earlier from boxing. You regroup and you fight back in describing Kitchener's plan. There's another example, the 1-2 punch. So the 1-2 are body blows to weaken your opponent, and then the punch is the knockout. So I'll tell him that you don't start with a knockout. What's at stake here for the Palestinians is the survival of their own national narrative. And this plan actually threatens the national identities of the surrounding countries, and the people of the region know that. So I tell him to, read a book, understand the region better, and not to look at everything in terms of dollar signs and business deals. The Palestinians, as well as all the people in the region, are consummate business, men and women who are capable. They don't need, American money to function. They need a chance to excel, to go to school, to be able to travel, feel like human beings. And he needs to look at these areas of human existence for a change. But he might actually start by doing so within his own borders, to the disadvantaged and egalitarianism and respect for women, before he comes to the region and unleashes his son-in-law to solve problems that he doesn't understand.
Mr. Friedson.
Thank you. First, I'd like to compliment my co-panelist. I think some awful good advice, and I hope the president is listening, and I hope he's amenable to listening to some advice. And when he does that, I would suggest to him that confidence isn't just a non-material factor. In the deal of the century, you can't make that deal without confidence. the world understands that he will not be president forever. And I'm not talking about the next election in 2 years or 6 years. I mean, there is a term limit and there's a time he will not be president anymore. This impacts very strongly on the extent to which parties are going to believe anything that's put at them at any kind of negotiation table, even if the atmosphere was better. That underscores what I said before about optics. I would say, Mr. President, the optics are so detrimental at this point. After 2 years of the largesse from the Americans to the Israelis, the confidence is gone. It's not a question of what you gave them physically, tangibly. While that's important, the fact that you're doing it and you're saying to one party in a heated negotiation, while I'm negotiating with both of you, I'm going to be giving good things to one of you. That's, for the guy who is supposed to be the big negotiator, that doesn't seem to be a very appropriate path to take. And I would suggest that he meet with his son-in-law behind closed doors and say, Jared, let me see that thing you're carrying around for so long. Let me see the other side of it. Let's go over it, and let's maybe we should just tear it up, and maybe we should start again, and let's get really realistic. Let's bring in the people we need to give us guidance, and let's not rely on stumbling backwards after 79 tries, but let's try to be proactive and do something that actually could be conceivably acceptable as the framework for what everybody has been trying to get for such a long time.
Mr. Michael Friedson, Executive Editor of the Media Line News, thank you very much. I also would like to extend my thanks to Dr. Khalil Jahshan, Executive Director of the Arab Center in Washington, D.C., Dr. Hani Bawardi, Professor at the University of Michigan. In conclusion, thank you all, and we'll see you again the first Friday in August.